Hello, and welcome to the Leighton Cassette Podcast, and today I'll be covering Twister. Twister was backed by Warner Brothers and by Universal. It was also produced by Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment. Screenwriter Geoffrey Hilton came up with the concept and pitched it to Amblin Entertainment in 1992. Spielberg presented the concept to writer Michael Crichton, best known for writing the Jurassic Park novel, and Crichton and his wife Anne Marie Martin wrote the screenplay. Director Jan de Bont signed on to direct after he left the Godzilla project over budget disputes. I probably butchered his fucking name there. Joss Whedon was brought on to do rewrites in the spring of 1995. Steven Zaillian then stepped in when Whedon got bronchitis. Whedon then returned, but left again after he got married. Jeff Matheson was then brought on during production and worked until the shoot ended. Bill Paxton was cast as Bill Harding, Helen Hunt as Dr. Joe Harding, his estranged wife, Jamie Gertz as Dr. Melissa Rivers, Cary Elwes as Bill's rival Dr. Jonas Miller, and that motherfucker's been in everything, Philip Seymour Hoffman as Dusty, Alan Ruck as Rabbit, Sean Whalen as Alan Sanders. Cool aside, my mom met him at a wedding last year. And Joey Slotnick, who looks like a poor man's Paul Giamatti. And there's various other background players as part of Bill and Joe's team of storm chasers. The movie was primarily shot on location in Oklahoma. The drive-in scene was shot at a real drive-in theater in Guthrie, Oklahoma. The real-life town of Waukeeta was used during filming, and a section of the older part of town was demolished for the film. Due to the seasons changing, which impacted the look of Oklahoma, filming was moved to Iowa, and the climax of the film featuring the F-5 tornado was shot in Iowa. Halfway through filming, Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt were temporarily blinded by electronic lamps used to make the skies look dark and stormy. Paxton remembered that they literally sunburned their eyes, and they had to use eye drops and wore special glasses for the next few days to recuperate. They used a plexiglass filter to fix the problem. Paxton and Hunt both needed hepatitis shots after filming in an unsanitary ditch. Hunt repeatedly hit her head on a low wooden bridge. She also hit her head on the door of the truck during the chase in the cornfield, leading to some saying that she suffered a concussion. Director Bont said that she was a bit clumsy, a comment that Hunt didn't take too kindly to, considering he burned her retinas. Some crew members felt de Bont was out of control and left the shoot just over a month into filming. Don Burgess, head of the camera crew, said de Bont didn't know what he wanted until he saw it. He would shoot one direction and then would want to shoot the other direction and get angry that it took the crew too long to set up the different shot. De Bont said Don had trouble adjusting to the different weather conditions. So it's just pretty much a case of he said. But de Bont even knocked over a camera assistant in a fit of rage because the assistant missed a cue. This caused the camera crew to walk off set. They returned, however, and they worked one more week until another crew was hired and agreed to replace them. Jack N. Green, head of the new camera crew, was injured when one of the hydraulic houses in the movie was activated with him still inside, causing him to be hospitalized. And the director then took over as his own director of photography for the rest of the shoot. Because they couldn't control the weather, ILM had to digitally replace the sky in some shots, as during some of the chases it was actually a bright sunny day. Twister was scored by Mark Mancina, and interestingly enough, the original Van Halen reunited for a new song for the film, Me Wise Magic. And this is the first time that singer David Lee Roth had joined Eddie and Alex Van Halen and Michael Anthony for the first time since the band's classic album 1984. Interestingly enough, the song that plays, there is one Van Halen song that plays at two different points in the movie, and it's the last one they recorded with Sammy Hagar before Hagar left the band. So I thought that was pretty funny because I'd always heard that about how David Lee Roth came back to do this song, and I don't even hear that one in the movie. Maybe it's in the credits or something, but on May 24th, 1996, a tornado destroyed screen number 3 at the Canview Drive-In Theatre in Thorlord, Ontario. Thorlord. Thor old. Easy for me to fucking say, Jesus. Where Twister was scheduled to be shown later that evening. On May 10th, 2010, a tornado destroyed a farmhouse in Fairfax, Oklahoma, where numerous scenes were shot. And after Paxton's death in February 2017, hundreds of storm chasers and users of the Spotter network used their markers to spell out his initials across the state of Texas as a tribute to the actor. And that tornado that destroyed screen number 3 in Ontario, it was actually rumored that Twister was actually playing when the screen was destroyed, but that was always just an urban legend. I guess the story just wasn't good enough that the movie was scheduled to play there. But Twister was released May 10th, 1996. It was originally slated to be released May 17th, but was moved up to give it 2 weeks before Mission Impossible was released. It earned $41 million its opening weekend, breaking the May record set by Lethal Weapon 3. It won the box office its first 2 weeks, and it ended up making $494 million, making it the second biggest movie of 1996, behind Independence Day. Its budget was $92 million, and it received 2 Oscar nominations for Best Visual Effects and Best Sound Mixing. We get stormy-looking opening credits to start the movie. And then we open in June 1969, looking at some Oklahoma plains. We then go to a farmhouse where it's lightning like a motherfucker. We see a guy watching the weather report. His wife and him then storm into their daughter's room, pun intended. And it's during this we learn her name is Jo. And Jo's parents run to the storm cellar while lightning strikes a tree, and there's just chaos all around. They make it in, and so does her little dog, Toby, who was trailing behind them. Jo's dad said the news speculated that it could be an F5, but I don't fucking see Brock Lesnar anywhere. They go to relax on a bench when suddenly the door starts shaking and coming loose. Joe's dad goes and tries to hold it shut, but he gets sucked up into the tornado. The door flies off with him still holding on, and he's fucking out of there. Joe goes to run after him like a stupid little girl, but her mom grabs her and holds her so she can't go. We go to present day, so that would be 2019, present day, but it's meant to be 1996, so a CGI satellite orbiting Earth. Then we dive into the National Severe Storm Laboratory. And there's a couple of nerds predicting a record outbreak of tornadoes. We meet Bill and we assume it's his girlfriend Melissa going to meet his estranged wife to get her to sign divorce papers. We see adult Jo, meaning her dad could have let that stupid door go and everything would have just been fucking fine. Her and her team are preparing to chase the fuck out of some tornadoes. Bill arrives and the team is pumped to see him. They call him the Extreme. Bill tries to ask Jo about the divorce papers, but it's obvious that she doesn't want to give them to him. She goes to mess with her ring and she puts like her class ring on her ring finger, which her wedding band is still on. I don't know what that was all about. It was a weird bit. You'd think she would take her wedding ring off of her ring finger just so Bill didn't see, but whatever. But then, like a dick, Bill says he's engaged to Melissa. And that's why he's in a rush to get the papers. And this is where she messes with the rings. When he's looking through the papers. She gives him the papers, but she forgot to sign some pages. And after Bill tells Joe he left Melissa with Dusty, she runs off because she wants to meet his new fiancée. Dusty tells Melissa about the suck zone. That's an interesting name for it. But it turns out that's his term for the point in which a tornado sucks you up. Some awkwardness between the current and future Mrs. Hardings. Joe busts Bill's balls about being a weatherman. Joe tells Bill that Dorothy is here, and you can almost see the erection etched across his face. We see a big-looking canister thing with a decal of Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and that's why it's named Dorothy. It's an homage. The rest of the team joins Bill and Joe, and we get a bunch of exposition about what Dorothy is. A pack that has a bunch of little sensors in it, and their goal is to get it in front of the suck zone for the tornado to suck it up so they can get measurements of the tornado. It's supposed to beam information back to them, measurements and such. It is a revolutionary concept. I hope they have a trademark or a patent. Joe says the warning time is typically 3 minutes, and the sensors could potentially up it to 15. It's obvious she is quite passionate about this, but not to be a dick, her dad died because he held a fucking door, not because they didn't have enough time to get to safety. If he would have just let that fucking door go, he wouldn't have died, but whatever. The exposition ends with some claps and cheering from the team, and we get the technical term for the suck zone. It's actually called the damage path. They then get word of activity, and they hurriedly head out. There's really good music playing in this scene. The score, pretty good, and it's a good score overall. Bill doesn't plan on joining them, but he forgot to get Joe to finish signing the papers, and Bill and Melissa take off after Joe and the rest of the team. We then see Jonas Miller, Bill's rival, who started off working in the same laboratory as him, but he sold out and went corporate. Bill tells Melissa that Jonas is in it for the money and not the science. And Bill gets run off the road by one of Jonas's crew, and while he's getting his tire repaired at a local garage, Bill sees Jonas showing the media Dot 3. Pretty much the exact same fucking thing that Dorothy is. Jonas stole the idea and tries to take credit for it. Bill tries to beat Jonas's ass, but he's pulled off by his crew. He tells Joe he will give her 1 day, but then he is gone, no matter what. Jonas tries to get information from Joe about which way they are going. Bill chills outside while Joe tells Melissa in the diner across from the garage about all Bill's skill at tracking tornadoes. I think Joe tells her that Bill knows what a storm is thinking, which is interesting. Melissa calls out Joe for still loving Bill, something she doesn't respond to, and we get some Shania Twain playing in the background, so we know exactly what year we're in, pretty much. Either be 95 or 98 for the most part, as far as that goes. Maybe a little bit 2003, but... They then head off in a hurry to chase the storms. Bill tells Melissa to drive his new Dodge Ram, because we got lots of product placement for Dodge in this fucking movie, while he grabs Joe's keys and tells Joe he'll drive, and she can ride shotgun. Jonas and his team head out when they see Joe's team leaving. Dusty is obviously the fun one, blasting music and woo-wooing the whole way. Melissa gets a call, and we find out she's a therapist. Bill tells Joe that she is a therapist, and then she hilariously asks, "Yours?" They then argue, and we learn what some of their problems could have been. His inability to finish things and rush into things. At least some of their problems on her end. And he has a hard time, and his inability to rush into things that he has a hard time committing to, i.e. a new marriage. Bill almost drives into a tractor while they are arguing, and we can see the rest of the team can hear their argument on the CB radio. Well, yeah, they can hear the rest of the argument. Belcher informs them that there's a tornado about to touch down, and here we go. They take off toward it, Jonas and his team trailing, and they assume that Bill and Joe have turned left, which they do. They see the skid marks on the ground and follow. Joe asks Bill if he's lost his nerve because he isn't speeding or doing the things he normally does in this situation. And he accepts the challenge. And I think the tornado looks really good, especially for 1996 special effects. Bill and Joe cut through a ditch and we get a close-up look at the tornado, and, well, it looked better from a distance. They lose the brakes on the truck and they crash into a bridge. Joe wants to activate Dorothy, but Bill says there's no time, and they hide under the bridge until the tornado dissipates. Joe has a death wish, though, as during this, she wants to see the tornado, and Bill has to hold her back so she doesn't get too close, I guess. And this must have been the unsanitary ditch that they had to get the shot for. Joe's truck was picked up by the tornado and crashes down right in front of Melissa. And she has a panic attack. And Dusty must be high as fuck as he can't quit laughing. So I kind of think it's implied that he's a stoner anyway. Dusty taunts Jonas and the rest of his crew as they drive by in a pretty funny bit. Now here's the biggest piece of bullshit in this movie. Joe asks Bill if he has full coverage on his new truck, and he says liability only. Everyone who has gotten a new vehicle knows you have to have full coverage. Unless he paid cash for it, which I highly doubt, unless Melissa bought it for him. We then see Dorothy too loaded up on the back of it, even though he told Joe no way several times before she even asked. I should mention that they do have 4 of the Dorothy canisters. Bill is driving and Joe's riding shotgun with Melissa in the back, which I find pretty hilarious. We see Jonas and his crew's fancy gadgets. Bill goes to whiz by them, but he brakes because he sees a tornado and he thinks that it's a sidewinder and it's going to brake the other way. They go down a different road while Melissa gets a call from a patient. We hear the conversation on Melissa's end and we learn that she's a reproductive therapist. Bill was right, and the tornado does break away from Jonas, which is kind of enrages him. We then see one tornado break off into 2 on the lake. There's 3 total going on here. And a cow being thrown through the air, and the classic line while Melissa is talking to a client on the phone, "Julie, I gotta go, we got cows." They end up in between the tornadoes, and the truck gets pushed around a bit before they dissipate. And then Bill and Joe get out of the truck celebrating, like hugging and laughing and having a good old time, until Bill sees how traumatized Melissa is. And she says she thought his tornado chasing was a metaphor. Actually, no, he was being quite literal. The rest of the crew shows up and pressures Joe into going to Waukeeta to see her Aunt Meg and get some food. Meg is so happy to see Bill and the rest of the crew, but particularly Bill. The crew eat and watch Jonas on TV and jeer him. Melissa asks why they call Bill the Extreme, and they tell a funny story about how they all met Bill, which is funny because I thought that they all worked in the same lab, but I guess he misspoke or I misheard, I don't know. We see a shot of Joe in the shower washing her hair. There's no nudity, of course, and I only mention this because she is wearing a watch in the shower, which I find hilarious. Back at the dinner table, they explain the scale of how they measure tornadoes to Melissa, and everyone gets sullen when she asks if there's an F5, and they say, "Oh, only one of us have seen it, obviously Joe." And we do get a nice scene of Meg comforting Joe about her divorce from Bill. It's a good little bit between the Helen Hunt and Aunt Meg. The crew then hurries to get ready to head out when Dusty hears there's an F3 forming. Bill sends Melissa to ride with Dusty. The Van Halen music kicks up while they are driving toward the storm. The Sammy Hagar Van Halen music, which Sammy Hagar Van Halen's definitely not as good as David Lee Roth Van Halen. They come tearing off a dirt road out of a cornfield and almost crash into Jonas and his merry band of dickheads. They have a touchdown, but they can't see it. Bill and his crew turned off, and Jonas kept going straight, so that's how they got separated from them. Joe and Bill drive toward it while the rest of the team pull over. Bill gets Dorothy ready while Joe continues to drive. Debris coming at them like a son of a bitch, and Dusty tries to get Melissa to check out the tornado through a camera, but she tells Dusty they are all crazy. I think there's a missed opportunity here where she could have had some good little bits, some therapy or psychology bits, but she just says you're all crazy, so. Joe stops the truck and they rush to try and get Dorothy down. But with the debris coming at them and the power lines falling, it knocks the pack over when suddenly the tornado disappears. The tornado is back building and reappears just as they are getting out of the way. Joe jumps out of the truck to get all the sensors that spilled all over the road, and when Bill tries to tell her that it's a lost cause, she comes unglued. They have an argument about how obsessed she is and pretty much about her dad dying. And Bill says she has him right in front of her. He says, you're living in the past, you got me right in front of you. And this is a conversation that Melissa and the rest of the team can hear, and Melissa looks a combination of sad and pissed. Bill's supposed to be divorcing her, so I don't know how she has him, but that's what he says. Now we see all the crew driving down the road departing for the day. We go to a drive-in theater where The Shining is playing. There is a motel right beside the drive-in where the crew is chilling. Joe swipes a pen from the concession stand to finish signing the divorce papers. Bill tries to talk to Joe and thinks maybe the funnel won't carry the sensors like they thought. The sensors are too light. Meanwhile, Melissa is fucking with her engagement ring in the motel and staring at it. Looks like she'd been crying. I didn't notice it on my first watch through, but a little spoiler for the end, I did enjoy it so much that I watched it again, and it looked like she may have been crying, before the scene started. But she's no doubt pondering her life with her Billy. All the TVs turn to static, and it gets windy, and lightning lights up the night sky. Dusty runs out of his short bus-looking vehicle and warns them that a tornado is headed right for them. Bill says it's already here. Melissa comes running out of the motel and everyone runs to the safety of a garage while the tornado destroys the movie screen and an unforgettable visual from the film. The tornado blows out all the windows and takes some of the panels off the roof. Preacher grabs an air hose that broke loose and a hubcap hits him in the head in the process. Melissa freaks while cars crash through the garage. They are pretty safe as they went a floor lower than the main floor. There's still debris and shit coming at them, but they would have been fucked if they wouldn't have had that little basement-like thing. We see a storm brewing in Aunt Meg's. And after they get back to the van, Dusty informs them that there is a tornado headed to hit Waukeeta head-on. Melissa tells Bill that she can't compete with this and she's done. She says she's not that upset about it and she can find her way home, and that she hopes Meg is okay. I couldn't stand Melissa when I was a kid, but watching it now, I do feel kind of bad for her. But she got involved with a married man, so I guess that's just the way it goes. We go to a destroyed Waukeeta, and Joe has almost a flashback seeing a father, mother, and daughter. Meg's house is destroyed. Bill and Joe enter to look for her, and they find her pinned under a bookcase thanks to her dog barking. They get her out, and Bill goes back to get her dog, just in the nick of time as the house collapses as soon as Bill exits with the dog. Meg tells Joe to go chase the F5 that Dusty tells her is approaching. Joe has an epiphany on how to make Dorothy fly by staring at her Aunt Meg's artwork. She has these they kind of look like propellers, and and when the wind blows, they move. So I think that, well, that's definitely where she had her epiphany at. But the next morning, they cut up Pepsi cans because product placement, and attach some of the last 2 packs of Dorothy. They load them all up in Bill's truck, and Bill and Joe head off to chase the F5. They stop in the middle of the road and unload one of the canisters. They speed off and wait for the tornado to take it away. However, it's too light and it won't take off. A CGI tree branch knocks it over, and the branch slides under Bill's truck, hanging them up. An oil tanker the tornado is carrying knocks them loose. Just barely enough. Doesn't blow up and destroy them, though it does fall down the road, get whipped to the ground, and blow up right in front of them. And Jonas and his crew are chasing this tornado as well. Joe tries to help Jonas, but he won't listen. She tells him the pack is too light and it needs to be anchored down. His .3 bullshit he's got. Even when Bill says the tornado is probably going to shift, which it does, Jonas won't listen. But a big piece of, I don't know what it is, staging or scaffolding, comes through the windshield of the truck that Jonas and his driver are riding in. No doubt killing the driver. It looks like it went right through him. But then the SUV gets picked up, and it's carried for a few seconds before it violently slams to the ground and explodes. Bill and Joe drive through a house blown into the middle of the road, and another unforgettable bit. Joe readies the last Dorothy, and they drive through a cornfield and set the cruise control. They jump from the truck, and it continues its trek toward the tornado, and Dorothy flies, and they have completed their goal. All the sensors light up and come out and go right up into the funnel. The tornado shifts, and they run away towards a barn. They find all kinds of weird sicing shit inside, so they bounce as the tornado takes the barn as they are running away. They run into a shack-like building where they find pipes Bill claims go 30 feet into the ground. They anchor themselves with some straps and hang on to the pipe as the wind blows them about, and we see that they are in the eye of the storm. It's a pretty cool little bit here. It then dissipates, and Bill and Joe kiss. Well, they go to kiss, but the rest of the crew shows up, and we got the Van Halen music playing. And as the crew's approaching, they bicker about who's going to do what as far as running the lab and doing the analysis. The rest of the crew joins them, and they share a little bit of, congratulations, and Bill and Joe kiss as the credits roll. Positives. Still pretty decent effects for 1996. Good acting, pretty strong story, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is a real riot. Negatives. It does drag in parts, but it overall has a nice flow to it. Now, overall, Twister is a good movie, and one that's still fondly remembered by many, and by new generations. Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt's chemistry is good, and the rest of the crew is lovable and fun as well. Definitely a thumbs up on this bad boy. Thank you for joining me on this edition of the Latent Cassette Podcast. Don't forget to follow on Twitter and Facebook. I do have a couple things I'm kicking around for what I'm going to do next week, but I will post it on Twitter as soon as I have a concrete decision, and I will see you next week on the Latent Cassette Podcast.